Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a wild story of greed, crime, and, well, stuffed animals. We're looking at one of the most absurd economic events in modern history. We're going to see how a harmless $5 children's toy completely transformed into a speculative investment, sparking mass hysteria and a totally unprecedented economic bubble.
Listen to this quote from the time. People were literally breaking into shops to steal these things. What started out as a simple line of cuddly little teddy bears rapidly devolved into a full-blown addiction. You had adults gambling their entire life savings on plush toys, creating a massive crime wave just to get their hands on them. Fortunes were made, and as you'll see, fortunes were absolutely ruined.
Section 1. The Plush Toy Mastermind.
To really understand this craze, we have to look at its eccentric architect, Ty Warner. Before he was a billionaire strutting around in the top hat and a fur coat, Ty's early life was marked by a pretty dysfunctional childhood and a bizarrely competitive relationship with his father, who actually also sold toys. Ty became a star toy salesman in the 1970s, pulling in over $100,000 a year, but his ego got a little too big. He started secretly pitching his own toy ideas to his employer's clients, got caught, got fired, and spiraled into depression. It wasn't until 1986, using a $50,000 inheritance after his father passed away, that he started Ty Inc. And he did this right in the middle of a shrinking market that was being totally crushed by the rise of Nintendo.
Now, despite that tough market, Ty had a genuinely innovative blueprint. He traveled to South Korea, found a manufacturer, and focused obsessively on premium materials. But his real stroke of genius? He intentionally decided to understuff his animals. Leaving them just a little bit empty made them incredibly soft, cuddly, and posable. And this brilliantly illustrates how protective he was. He actually threatened to sue copycats into oblivion over this. At trade shows, the guy would literally tweeze around the toys' eyes and use blow dryers to fluff them up, destroying and rebuilding his displays until they were absolutely perfect.
Section 2. The Art of Scarcity.
So Ty's new creation, dubbed Beanie Babies, officially launches in 1993. But here is the crazy part. They totally failed at first. It actually took a complete accident to change everything. Due to a supplier issue, the fabric used to make one of their few decent sellers, Levy the Lamb, became unavailable. But instead of telling wholesale buyers it was simply discontinued, Ty executed this psychological masterstroke. He announced Levy was retired. Instantly, a switch flipped in the consumer's brain. People panicked. They started asking, wait, are other Beanie Babies going to be retired too? It created this massive, completely artificial demand, literally out of thin air.
Kai quickly realized he had struck gold here, so he started actively retiring underperforming animals just to clear out his inventory. Around this time, suburban moms started using printed checklists to collect them. And you know, once you give adults a checklist, it becomes hyper-competitive. They obsessed over exactly what they didn't have. Ty essentially marketed them as an affordable, $5 collectible lottery ticket. You buy a toy, wait for it to retire, and flip it for a massive profit. Suddenly, people were buying duplicates just to hoard them.
Ty also manipulated his distribution to really pour gasoline on this fire. He completely avoided big chain stores like Toys R Us. He knew that massive bins of discounted toys destroy perceived value. Instead, he only sold to small mom-and-pop gift shops. Because these little stores never had much stock on hand, it created this incredibly powerful illusion of extreme rarity. That drove the frenzy even further.
Section 3. Fueling Fire with the Internet.
Okay, so this localized craze then collided with brand new technology, and it's all thanks to Ty's 12th employee. She was a part-time college student named Lena Trivedi. Making just $12 an hour, she pitched $2 billion ideas. First, she suggested adding birth dates and personalized poems inside those iconic red heart tags. She actually wrote 86 of them herself in just 3 days. Second, and absolutely most crucially, in 1995, she suggested they utilize this new thing called the Internet. They launched Ty.com, which became one of the very first business-to-consumer websites in history.
The website was an absolute sensation. It featured a guestbook where fans endlessly speculated on retirements, but the real explosion happened on eBay. Get this, at the absolute peak of the mania, an estimated 10% of all sales on eBay were linked to Beanie Babies. Just think about that. Online message boards and unofficial price guides fueled a massive secondary market, driving the prices of these $5 plush toys into the thousands.
Section 4. Peak Mania and Plush Crime. By 1996, the snowball had turned into an absolute avalanche. The numbers are just staggering.
We're talking $28 million in 1995, $280 million in 1996, and by 1998, a jaw-dropping $1.4 billion in sales. And keep in mind, this only shows Thai's official retail sales. It completely ignores that massive secondary market where unofficial magazines were literally running ads asking, how do you protect an investment that increases by 8,400%?
The sheer chaos of this era is unbelievable. Thai ruthlessly limited shipments to stores to just 36 beanies a month. Frantic collectors were stalking delivery trucks. It got so dangerous, with drivers actually being assaulted, that Thai was forced to remove the heart logos from shipping boxes just to stop truck hijackings. Out in California, an armed, masked man robbed a toy store, completely ignored the cash register, and stole $5,000 worth of Beanie Babies. And when Thai partnered with McDonald's for teeny beanies, people were throwing the food in the trash just to keep the toy. Fights broke out. McDonald's completely ran out of stock in 2 weeks.
So the crucial point here is this brutal contrast in value. You had everyday people keeping these toys in locked display cases, trading them for over $2,000, genuinely believing they were paying for their kids' college funds. That was the perceived illusion. The actual reality? Millions upon millions of them were being mass-produced in Chinese factories for roughly 25 to 65 cents a pop. Because Thai hid the inventory across thousands of tiny shops, nobody realized the true massive scale of the production.
Section 5. The bubble finally bursts.
The frenzy had reached a fever pitch. But, well, speculative markets built on an illusion never last. I really want you to think about this question. What happens when everyone is buying just to sell? This is the fundamental flaw of any bubble. People were no longer buying Beanie Babies as toys to play with. They were buying them solely as an investment to offload onto the next person for a higher price. But eventually, you just run out of new buyers. Supply outpaces demand, and confidence vanishes overnight. In 1999, the illusion completely shattered. Thai released 24 new beanies at once, which was their largest drop ever, and overwhelmed collectors essentially just gave up trying to complete their sets. Even worse, Thai started massively overproducing the older, retired beanies just to cash in. Suddenly, collectors were walking into stores and realizing these things weren't rare at all. The artificial scarcity was entirely gone.
As prices began to tank, Thai got desperate. In August 1999, he announced every single Beanie Baby would be retired by the end of the year. Sure, it caused a brief media spike, but then, on Christmas Day, he pulled this massive gimmick. He put the fate of the brand to a 50-cent public vote. Shockingly, 91% voted to keep them around. But the public saw right through the manipulation. The magic was dead. Sales tanked by more than 90%, and these once coveted investments ended up in literal dollar stores.
Section 6. Lessons from the crash.
The fallout from this crash was honestly devastating. We look back at it now and laugh, but a real actor lost his children's 6-figure college fund. Families went into massive debt, hoarding wheelbarrows full of plush toys to pay off their mortgages, only to be left holding bags of worthless fabric. And what about Ty Warner? Well, he remained a multi-billionaire. In a really bitter twist of irony, in 2013, he was charged with tax evasion after hiding over $100 million in a secret Swiss bank account. And despite that massive fraud, he received 0 jail time, just probation. The architect of the bubble walked away essentially unscathed, while his most devoted customers lost everything.
This quote from an economic historian sums up the entire era absolutely perfectly. There is nothing so disturbing to one's well-being and judgment as to see a friend get rich. The Beanie Baby craze was never really about a love for stuffed animals. It was about pure, intoxicating FOMO, the fear of missing out on easy money.
Whether it's the 17th century tulip mania in Holland, the Beanie Baby craze of the 90s, or the recent explosion of NFTs, speculative bubbles all follow the exact same psychological blueprint. They rely entirely on finding a new buyer, a greater fool willing to pay an inflated price. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Knowing how easily our judgment gets clouded by the promise of overnight wealth, what bizarre everyday item do you think we might blindly speculate on next?